Another draft physics video production. For what purpose? Just pointless conversation with whoever the fuck you people are. In the last video, as I pointed out right in the video, I gave you all the clues. Basically told you historic video. After 300 years of bullshit theories, I've finally explained why there's such a thing as wave-particle duality. It's done. The explanation was complete, flawless, and yet nothing. Not even a chirp in the right direction by you idiots. Just pointing out there's just no point in talking physics with whoever you people are, because you just don't get any of it. You have no knowledge base, no perspective from which to judge or make judgments. You're just waiting for me to say something you like. I don't know. And I don't even know where that is in these videos. But the average viewer of a video, right, doesn't watch the video, quite obviously. They click on the first 2 minutes and say, oh, fuck this. Apparently. So, I mean, 80% of the view numbers or something like that are people who don't even watch the fucking video. So, yes, I am talking to a tiny percentage of people, really. And it appears that most of them are just dumbass fucking religious kook trolls. So yeah, it's quite discouraging. So I did send out a couple more emails soliciting physicists, asking for their price list. They won't even send me price lists. I just offer. I'm willing to do an interview and pay you an hourly rate. Could you please send me information regarding what you would charge for such an encounter on the YouTubes? That kind of thing. Nothing. So you can't obligate these people to show up to interrogate them on the credibility of their garbage physics. And it's just garbage. I mean, the more you pick at it, it's so fucking stupid. It really is. Like the guy taking single particles and putting the wave inside of them. It's that fucking stupid. Like they don't really realize that waves are more complicated than particle moving through space. That you would make the wave out of the particles. You wouldn't make the fucking particles into a wave. The individual particles. So I have to always, qualify my statements because nobody can pay any attention. Alright, so enough of my cranky lament. I just thought it'd be like the video would get a tiny bit more views. It'd be some sort of noise made somewhere like, well, what about this theory? Look at this. So how do you debunk this? Nothing. Alright. Nothing. I mean, I know I'm going to win in the end. I mean, I know this will be the future. It's too right. It's too correct not to be the future. So it will be the future, and I'm just sitting here like a Van Gogh or something. Just saying, I mean, you won't pay 10 cents for my fucking paintings? I mean, it's not that bad. I mean, yes, I'm a little sloppy. I'm a little blah, blah, blah. But look at the colors. Look at the action. You don't get it at all? That's the circumstance. I'm stuck in. It's just... fate sucks. Anyway, so there were some comments, and again, just couldn't be any further from the subject, basically, but let's see what happens. What exactly is... No, he doesn't say something that stupid. No. Well, yeah, I forgot how stupid it was. I thought this was the whatever, the Mexican tea guy. Anyway, what exactly is a photon in its shape? I don't know. So you reduce physics to two things, two force bits, two matter bits, charge, and two kinds of interaction. So you've taken this big complicated subject and reduced it to fucking 6 little things. The whole subject is 6 things. And they still, what's the shape of thing number 1? Who the fuck cares? I mean, anybody has any knowledge of physics knows they call it like a quanta. I mean, it doesn't really matter what it is. I mean, you don't say, what's the shape of my memory bits in your computer or something. You don't worry about that shit. It's irrelevant. It functions as a little bit moving through space at the speed of light. That's all you need to know. Its fucking shape? Does the photon have a surface? Who the fuck cares? It transfers momentum. That's it. It has a thing called movement, and it makes other things it interacts with fucking move. What else do you fucking gotta know? What's the size of this photon? Well, I already just explained that in the fucking video. We use this word photon, okay? It's a little bit of a fucking mistake, like the plus and minus being on the wrong end of the fucking battery. It's kind of a stupid word to use for a photon, right? To say photon, because it's made of quanta, little fucking bits, you fucking idiot, as I explained in the fucking video. We call this thing, this whole fucking bit of stuff at a frequency, we say that's a photon, okay? You need each little bit or it's not a photon. I explained how the human eye only sees this as a photon if there's 6 of these motherfucking pieces of shit. And I explained that right in the fucking video, you fucking asshole. So what are you asking me this stupid fucking question for? This does not have a shape. It has a size in space, okay? It consumes space. And I pointed out that all these photons are all flying on top of each other, going through something, all right? But they're all got a frequency between them. The little bits have a frequency, a distance between them, okay? And the distance has to stay the same for 6 interactions. There has to be 6 bits at the same fucking distance that hit some fucking surface on your fucking retina, or you don't see the fucking thing as a photon. You see it as nothing. Sorry. You're just so fucking stupid. All right. It's a particle. It's a thing. I call it a bit. How many fucking times have I said the word bit? It's a bit of fucking energy moving through fucking space at the fucking speed of light. Shit. Alright. It only travels absolutely straight in its path. Yeah, duh. Well, why would it go crookedy? Why? Do cannonballs go crookedy? Do bullets go crookedy? No. Not unless they hit something that makes them go crookedy. Right? Fuck. Alright. It's a ray always, never curving. Well, that's the same question over again, isn't it? Yeah. But the point is it's spread. It's a bunch of parallel bits. Look, it's a gun. You're shooting the gun. There's a certain frequency you need to shoot the gun at because you're going to try to move a pendulum up each time. So you obviously can't hit the pendulum with the bullet when it's coming down. You want to hit the pendulum when it's moving up, right? So you know, moving away from you. So you pull the trigger at just the right time to do that. But as you're pulling the trigger, your gun isn't exactly in the same position. So the bullets are a little bit out of alignment. That's a photon. The alignment they're out of is called its polarization. Can you that's a big giant fucking word. I don't know if you can handle it. Polarization. Polarization doesn't mean it has a north pole and a south pole or any of that horse shit. It just means how much did you move the gun while you were shooting the bullets. Fuck. Alright. You have explained why light is not a wave. I explained how you can have waves of soldiers if you have them all marching the same way and you send them out at a period, at a certain amount of time interval. And if you send them out at the same time interval, your soldiers will look like a wave. And then I pointed out how you could do this with guns also and bullets. You can shoot them at a certain frequency and it will look like a wave of bullets. But in fact, the individual bullets don't give a flying fuck that they're in a wave of any kind. They're doing their little discrete thing. Okay, the wave is an emergent thing that happens when you have a whole bunch of bullets. They can look like a wave, but it doesn't matter because the bullets have to actually climb over the German Nazi lines and invade Germany and all that shit. The bullets, the individual bullets have to do it. Alright. Okay. It is not a wave. Clearly explain that a wave is a disturbance of a medium. Oh, this is just so irritating. Of an ambient, ubiquitous, smaller material. I didn't say any of that shit. Okay, waves can be in all kinds of things, but waves are just soldiers banging into soldiers. Like, yeah, there's a soldier in my way. He's eating a sandwich, and I bang into him, and then he goes, whoa, and falls into the guy in front of him, and then that guy falls in front of him. That's a wave. Who the fuck cares? It's not fucking elemental. There's no elemental wave. Nothing can't have a something, and the something is waving all by itself. An individual thing can't wave. Oh, shit. If someone were to ask me the shape, it would be a discrete, invisible, static sphere vibrating bubble shaped. Why is it vibrating? The whole point of my explanations are to sort of point out you can't just say something curves. Like, oh, I have a hyperboreloid, but I'm not going to explain how the fuck the little elements of the hyperboreloid know I'm supposed to hyperboloid. How do they know that that's what they're supposed to fucking do? We don't assume the Earth just says, I'm going to go around the sun, la 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 la. For no good reason, I'm going to go around and around and around. No, most people understand there's got to be something acting on the Earth, some kind of force. Okay, even if it's some sort of bent geodesic, it's not much of a force, frankly, but whatever, that's what they believe. I'm just saying they account for it for some reason. They kind of understand there's a fucking explanation for why it's going around. You saying an elemental thing is vibrating is horseshit. It doesn't vibrate for no fucking reason. There has to be some mechanism that acts on it to vibrate. The pendulum does not swing back and forth without the fucking gravity stopping it from just going around and around stuck on a stick. And if you take away the stick, then it just flies that way. That's the elemental physics. So what is the point of your fucking questions? Again, it's just so, what exactly is the, how black is empty space? I mean, it's just. All right. So John Lee Hooker, troll. It doesn't matter because it's all BS, even though you demonstrate with not a single shred of an argument. So somebody says to you, the Earth is flat and blah 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 blah, and you can't make a single coherent argument explaining how any of their what they've pointed out to be the facts are inconsistent with a single experiment. You can't show how they are wrong. You can't explain how, well, lighthouses rise on the horizon when you're sailing, You can't explain a single reason why. You can explain why, yes, the surface is fucking curved. You don't like it, too bad. But yeah, the ocean's actually curved. Anyway. If this guy knew what he was talking about, he'd be in the news already. So everybody's already in the news. So the Wright brothers were in the news before they even invented the airplane, right? Or something. Or it happened the first day. Einstein took 10 years. 10 years for Einstein, okay, to become anywhere close to even a recognized figure in science. 10 years, asshole. It's the same papers. Okay, yeah, well, he improved one of them, but most of it is all the same stuff. It takes a while. That's just because, why? Why does it take time? Oh, that's right, because you're assholes. Because you can't tell the truth from absolute crap. That's your bad, right, asshole? Yeah, so it's going to be your bad again, and it'd be nice if you signed your slanderous crap fucking comments so we could all know who the fuck the asshole was who was so fucking wrong. Oh, man. All right. I'm not talking about that 30-second Austin, Texas local bit when he was placed on a terrorist watch list. It wasn't a terrorist watch list, but regardless, and we really have no evidence that it actually happened anyway. Back in 2009 for publicly threatening. So again, this didn't happen. All I did was defend my constitutional rights. The Honorable Judge Hittner. So what he doesn't point out, and what the 30-second news story didn't point out either, was I was the one vindicated. Judge Hittner was removed from the case by the federal appeals court. Right? I, as a pro se litigant, won a federal appeal, which doesn't happen too fucking often. So I must have been extremely fucking right. Right? Extremely right. Not just like a little bit right. I must have been fucking preposterously right for a federal appeals court in Texas to say the guy from Jersey is right and kick, not just in a little way, no, boot in the ass Judge Hittner off the fucking case because of his violations of his own job requirements. So, you're just such a fucking slandering liar. I won the fucking case, douchebag, against Judge Hittner. Now, I didn't get anywhere with the rest of the case because they just gave it to another lunatic. Okay, and you have to spend hundreds of dollars to keep a case alive. Kicking judges off cases costs you real money. But amazing fucking lying scum. And he gets 5 thumbs up for that lie. So I know it's just the trolls watching this channel, right? This is just such a waste of fucking time. But obviously I'm doing the physics while I do the video, so that's a wash, I guess. And whether or not it's productive to even be public in letting the public know what I'm up to. Yeah, maybe that's just a wash. But I mean, what a lying sack of shit. I mean, not to point out that I won the fucking appeal and the honorable was kicked the fuck off the case, and the court, the appeals court, didn't mention any misconduct on my part. They didn't say the defendant was an asshole, but no, they didn't say anything like that. Liar. So obviously, if I was doing something horrible, like threatening or being terroristic, they probably would have pointed that out, wouldn't they, a fuckhead? You lying scum. Oh. It's just amazing how deep the asshole is of the human race. I mean, it is so black, smelly, and stinky. Oh. Humans suck. God. I really hate you people. All right. So here's Robert Ritchie. Okay. A serious question, Gary. I doubt it. What is the reason for the limit to the velocity of light in space? So, what the fuck? Who do you think can answer those questions? I mean, even if you believe in your fairy princess motherfucking cunt shit for brain ether bullshit, wouldn't you still have to explain, well, why it's the speed of light? I mean, couldn't it be 3,000,007 meters per second? I mean, couldn't it be 3 meters and 8 or 3 meters and 9? What fucking kind of douchebag brain do you have that you think that has something to do with understanding why magnets attract? You fucking kook. I'm sorry. This is so fucking stupid. I just explained why there's wave-particle duality in the video where I explained why there is. This idiot asks a question this fucking unanswerable. Why are the elemental functions the elemental functions? Oh, because God says so. Is that what you're waiting for? Is that what you're looking for? Because God made it that way? I mean, fuck. Too fucking stupid. Melissa was too fucking stupid too. I mean, just too fucking stupid. I mean, might have tried at the end to get to the subject, but the premises were just too useless. All right. Next. Oh, look at all this horse shit. One. Yeah, I'm sure it's not going to be a one of anything. One piece of shit and then piece of shit two. Physics has it. Physics as it is generally taught operates under the assumption. Who cares? I've already pointed out how all the assumptions are crap. But anyway, light, the assumption of light with a wavelength. Well, obviously, I haven't broken the idea of a wavelength. Now, I don't know where you got the notion that I broke the wavelength. I don't know. I couldn't have been clearer again. I mean, I drew the little things. I drew them at a distance apart, and I went too far because I boldly attempted to explain to you that the idea of polarization is they also have a distance between them in space, not only their frequency, but they have a polarization, a displacement in space. And that means the photon is huge. One photon can be this gigantic thing that hits the different little elements. One soldier goes to Munich, one goes to Bergen-Belsen, one goes to Pfliffenhofer. They're not hitting one city. But if you have enough of them, right, then you have a whole bunch hitting Pfliffenhofer, and you have a whole bunch hitting Berlin, and you have a whole bunch going to all these places. But the one little platoon of 7 or 8 little soldiers, that one little platoon is really big. It's really spread over a lot of territory. Okay, anyway, that assumes a wave amplitude. I mean, why does it do that? Sorry, you can't really assume it. But I mean, yes, everything that would be a something would have a certain magnitude. But the whole point of quantum mechanics is that we're already saying it's in discrete quanta of magnitude. That the clumps come in clumps. Yeah, you know, it's a group of clumps. And so, not really relevant terminology. Is that misinterpreted spread? No. Amplitude and intensity. Okay, we'll do amplitude and intensity. Why not? This is, they say the words. Regular physics says amplitude, and then they'll talk about the intensity of light. And, they have this stupid notion that intensity is without any qualification. They're just going to say frequency is intensity. But frequency is only intensity, based on the fact that, the frequency means there's more bullets per second. It doesn't mean the bullets have more energy. It just means that you fired more in a second. And so obviously that's, in a sense, more intense. All right, but it really doesn't have anything to do with any real intensity. So those are the two elements. You have the frequency, okay, the idea that there's stuff separated by a distance. Use the white chalk. Maybe that's better. No, better enough. So you have the frequency. And so as I increase the frequency, I mean, obviously, you can sort of see that in the same time period where I'd be measuring what's the intensity, well, obviously, this is twice as many little bits, so it's going to end up being more energy per second, more bullets per second, and you're going to be deader quicker, right? If I'm firing these bullets at you, you're going to be dead quicker than if I fire these bullets at you. So that's pretty obvious, right? And then amplitude is just a way of saying, well, how many streams of bullets did you fire? I mean, how many rays of bullets did you fire? So in their jargon, this would be intensity, okay, is the total volume in the amount of time, and amplitude would be, well, what's the frequency between the bullets? But that's, I'm just saying, this is just stupid language they're using. You can understand that the individual bullets never have anything called more energy, and then all you can do is fire more streams, have more guns, so you can increase the number of guns, can shoot more bullets, or you can shoot bullets faster. And those two things will have a consequential effect. They change the circumstance. They change how fast and how dead you will be. How dead you will be and how fast you will become that dead. Anyway. Is that misrepresented spread in your view? No, the spread is just the polarization. And as pointed out, if each photon is spreading through the same area, right? It's like a laser beam. You're adding a sequence of bullets out of alignment, and then you're shooting some more bullets out of alignment, and you're shooting some more bullets. So all the guns are right next to each other, and they're all shooting through the same space. But the bullets from each gun, okay, are in that space. So the more guns, the more bullets in the same space having their own frequency. Alright. How do you reconcile that? I don't know what the fuck I was supposed to reconcile. Alright, anyway. Moving on. Photons don't have an obligation to come in. I cannot stand this. Fuck you. Photons don't have an obligation to come in detectable chains of bits. Obviously, I can shoot one bullet. What does one bullet mean? Well, obviously, I'm not going to see it as a photon, right? If one little piece of quanta hits my eye, it's not going to make any difference to my eye. My eye's just going to say a piece of radiation hit it. It's not going to say it was a photon. It's not going to say I see that. Anyway, all right, let's just read it. Photons don't have an obligation to come in detectable chains or of bits, but happen to. Nothing just happens, so I don't even know what that even means. What do you want me to say? I don't know. What the fuck is that? Okay, shouldn't the photons, chains of bits, rays, whatever, or volley of bullets, self-destruct via spread by r squared. So you think a laser beam spreads by the r squared rule? And you think even if I used a regular light bulb, that the light can't get here because of the r squared rule, that there's not enough light for me to make a shadow? I can't make a shadow. I can't do that. That's impossible because the r squared rule means no light got here. So even with the r squared rule, there seems to be plenty of light right here, and I seem to be able to make a perfectly visible shadow. Seems to be a huge distinction between the light that does hit the surface and the light that doesn't. So what the fuck are you talking about? Without even the need of refraction. Well, the point is that most of these two-slit experiments and obviously interferometer experiments are being done with lasers, and lasers aren't diverging at the R inverse square law. There's a, they're diverging, but it's by a completely different fractional amount because they're not being emitted by a spherical source, so to speak. They're not point source anymore. But again, this is just, you think this is why there's wave-particle duality. These kinds of questions are the ones that that confused them. You think this is where they tripped? Then you're really pretty fucking clueless. Anyway. Can you reform? They can reform, but that ability is limited by the light of the emitting object. But I don't even know what the point of talking to you is. I mean, I already pointed out they're already in their form to start with. They have the right frequency and the right number. And then they hit an obstruction, a slit, or a half-silvered mirror, or some other obstruction that knocks off some of these. Some of these get diverted or eliminated, or they simply have their phase changed, which means they're in the wrong position now. They're here instead of here. And so there's still an empty spot here. So obviously this frequency has been lost. Now this is still all here, but I mean you've lost an element of its amplitude. an element of its intensity in that row. And so now it's going to be less effective. When you send those bullets and try to move something, it's not going to keep hitting with the same intensity, and therefore it's not going to be as effective in moving something that needs the frequency to be correct. All right. Okay. Assuming every point along a star's y-axis, does radial spread emission. Okay, so he's saying assuming the star is sending light out from all of its points, the topmost atoms emit unbroken rays at the slight downward angle tops. No, they don't. But whatever. The closest ray that can go past the slope of the star's roundness. What the hell are you talking about? Around the slope of the star's roundness? So you're talking about, what are you talking about? I can't even tell. You're talking about a star emitting light, or you're talking about a star blocking light, or bending light? What are you talking about? The closest ray that can go past the slope of the star's roundness. Inversely, the bottommost layer emits unbroken photons at a slight upward angle at most. Fuck you. I don't even know what the fuck you're talking about. I just don't know. I'm just like, why are you people even watching videos about anything? You know, if I did a video explaining how to open a cardboard box, you still couldn't follow along. I mean, it's, you know, how to find your way out of a paper bag. I mean, you know, Jesus. I mean, this is so elemental. I mean, look, the sun is a round object because of gravity, but, you know, theoretically it doesn't really matter. You can make it a square object. But each point, each little point is essentially producing photons. And they can, each point can produce one this way, or 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 this way. It obviously can't produce one this way. So yeah, anything on this plane is where the light's coming off. And everywhere on this plane, and 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 this plane. And so, but what that does is it just adds up to this. I mean, it just adds up to a certain intensity of light going in all these directions, and there's no such thing as this one goes this way instead, or this one goes this way instead, or some kind of crookedy bullshit. It's all just a straight line force, and it becomes the inverse square law, because these elements are diverging in both directions. They're getting further apart from each other with distance, both in, you know, because there's an angle they left at, okay, and the angle means the distance keeps growing, and it's growing in both dimensions. This is the R rule, and this is the R squared rule, because they're moving away from each other in both dimensions, left, right, and up, down. I mean, this is, you know, grammar school logic. Fuck. All right. All right, so I don't even know where he's going with this. The result is a shrinking cone that ends up with those angled lines intersecting. Oh, screw you. I mean, obviously, this line and this photon can intersect it at a point. So you can find a image of the whole star anywhere. I could stand here and see it. I can stand over here and see it. I can stand over here and see it. I can stand over here and see it. I mean, anywhere on a straight line, you could say, I could still see a sun. I could still see a sun. All right. Anyway, I should just give up. Give up. Anyway, that results in a shrinking cone that ends with those angled lines intersecting. There lies the ability to recombine the R² spread bits into photons. You can't recombine something that's spread at the R² rule. It's one of them's 10 million miles from the other one. You can't do that. You can only recombine them, not because of the R² rule, but because they were emitted going in different directions. And the two places can have the appropriate angle to end up in the same location. Man, there's just no point. Anyway, okay. There lies the ability to recombine the R spread bits into photons. After those lines meet, the spread and the star's movement would tend to rip apart anything called photons. No. No, what does the star's movement have to do with it? Photons are emitted in as close to instantaneously as you can get. They leave a surface. They're connected to a surface. They leave the surface. That happens so quickly that you'd have to be moving the surface the speed of light. And it wouldn't still matter because the photon only travels in one direction. It can't do curved lines. It can't do two momentums. It leaves in one vector, a straight line vector. You could possibly change the vector. It leaves that, but you can't change the fact that it's traveling a straight line at a constant speed. Well, whatever. 3. I wonder what the slit experiment with a concentric circle laser pointer. What does that even mean? Do it. No, the two slits is not going to matter because the edges of the laser don't go through the slits. The laser beam is always bigger than the two slits, so you're not going to see any irregularities in the shape of the laser. But if you do it with a diffraction gradient, you do it with the multi-slit, then you will see the funny shape. Again, you can buy them on eBay. You can buy little diffraction gradients that you put on top of your fucking laser pointer, and it'll make all little stars. It'll make a pattern. Because it's doing exactly that. It's sending an image of whatever you're projecting the light through. It sends that image to all the locations. Fuck. Would look like, especially if there are some with different colors per cycle. Whatever. Ugh. People are just so... You're killing me. You're just slowly going to just kill me. With all this fucking dumbass bullshit. I don't know what to do with this comment. No one's going to read it anyway, so what the fuck. I'll leave it. Hell with it. Let somebody else try to figure out what the fuck he's talking about. Alright, so let's see. What else can what should I move on to? Alright, well, in your honor, I suppose. I don't know. The other guy had mentioned Fermilab, so maybe we'll just go do that one. Since I've had it sitting here for a few days, might as well kill it. Alright, just an example of their just bad physics. I mean, just horribly explained, no details, just assumptions because they want to believe, and that's it. So, yeah. So this goes back to the whole bullshit of Einstein, New York Times headline, Einstein right, based on an experiment they can't even duplicate. And they could do it every day from space, and nobody ever does it. They could do it with a small telescope from space. You don't even need anything very elaborate. 10-inch, 6-inch telescope could probably do it. And we're supposed to believe that nobody's even trying. Ever.
Particle physics and cosmology often involve a lot of complicated ideas, but sometimes they're simpler than others.
Right, and that's when you become the most in loop-de-doo. That's when you really fuck it up. The simpler it is, yeah, right, left foot kind of thing. It's typical nerd behavior. I can do extraordinary calculus, but I can't figure out how, not to have my pants up around my nipples.
For instance, everybody knows what a lens is. Maybe we have glasses. Maybe we played with a magnifying lens.
Right, and there's a reason why it's a magnifying lens, is because it bends the light in a proportional relationship. The further out you go, the more it bends the light, because the more it needs to. And the closer you are to the middle, the less it bends the light. Yeah.
If you just casually look through a lens, it distorts your view of things that are behind it. Today, we're going to talk about a different kind of lens. This lens is called a gravitational lens, and it is caused by a large mass actually distorting and bending space.
Yeah, it's bending nothing. So again, this word using space as if it now could mean something, because now it's not space, it's bending nothing. Oh, sure it is. It's bending nothing. Why don't you just say ether? It's bending the ether. Why don't you just claim your ether is? Why not just fess up? Why play this game? Why use the word space when you don't really mean it's space, like empty space? Space, vacuum, nothing. Oh, so dishonest.
That's a pretty cool idea, so let's see how that works. It all started in 1915 when Albert Einstein...
I don't think that's when it all started, so that's sort of horseshit too. Lots of people speculated about this subject. Would a photon be, could you bend photons? Faraday was constantly trying to bend photons, okay? I mean, and what he found is you can bend them with magnetism or something else. You can change them. But what you're going to have to do is put them through a medium and then change the medium. So it's almost like the way heat, in humidity bends light. So it's, clearly, he knew he wasn't bending the light. He was just bending the medium he's putting the light through, blah, blah, blah. But anyway, there was lots of people trying to get magnetism to bend a photon, and they just couldn't possibly do it.
Invented a new theory of gravity called general relativity.
It should have just been called simple, stupid answer that provides no answer, because it's so fucking vacuous. The magical bent geodesic is creating energy that's pushing the Earth into the sun. I mean, we know the Earth's being pushed. I mean, that's why it's in an orbit, it's because it's being pushed or it's being pulled. And they basically just said, screw that. We won't bother having a force that's interacting with it. There's no energy doing it. It's the non-energy frickin' magic invisible funnel thingy in 3 dimensions, which can't possibly be a funnel in 3 dimensions. So what the fuck is this thing? It's the vacuum cleaner. We're sucking the ether. That's all. It's an ether theory, for fuck's sake.
General relativity treats space as malleable, and the very shape of space...
Right, nothing is very malleable. Yes, you can bend the nothing. And here we go again, another 2D example, right, that doesn't have anything to do with reality. The Earth isn't sitting in one little fabric. You'd have to have an infinite number of fabrics in all different directions and to illustrate it properly in 2D. And then you're still not doing 3D, and 3D just means there's an inverse square law and the stuff moves, converges, just the way the light diverges as it leaves. By the inverse square law, the force of gravity converges at exactly the same law. So just exactly like light, it functions just like it, except it's going in instead of going out. And instead of just saying that honest statement, they build this preposterous model.
Itself can be distorted. In this theory, objects don't orbit other objects because they're attracted together.
No, they orbit because they're being pushed by gravity down into the funnel. Yeah. It's just so, come on, it can't be this stupid. I can't be on a planet this fucking dumb. I actually used to, as a kid, I remember contemplating my existence while lying in bed staring in the black. And I used to think, like, what did I do to offend the aliens so much that they put me on this stupid fucking planet? I mean, I figured I had to be an alien because, I just couldn't relate to anybody in my family. So I said, I must be an alien. And I'm just like, why did they drop me here? I mean, what did I do that was just so fucking stupid?
Instead, objects travel in straight lines in curved space. The orbit of a planet around the sun is a straight line from the point of view of the planet.
So again, just a complex way of saying exactly the same thing as there's a certain amount of light and it's pushing the planet towards the other planet because the other planet's shadowing the light. No, let's not go with the right answer. Let's just talk shit.
That's kind of a mind-blowing idea, and it definitely needs some explanation.
No, yeah, you won't explain how that's an answer to anything, how it obeys force laws, how it's consistent with everything else we know about quantum mechanics and the fact that this momentum thing has to have a momentum carrier, and you're just fucking the whole idea of, virtual photon, bent space. These are their answers to how momentum moves through space. Virtual photon and bent geodesic. So, an imaginary thing, a thing that they can't account for as being real in any sense, except they're calling it a photon, so they're giving it some sort of identity. But they're saying it's not really a photon because we can't see it, we can't find it, we can't know anything about it. So it's this magical thing that's making energy happen. Even though they have examples, photons, they have the examples of it all over the place. They know that the photons really are a little bit tricky. You have to have a tuner to see photons. It took Hertz 7 years. He knew radio waves existed. It took him 7 years to figure out how the fuck to see them. And so knowing that, they're still surprised. What, you mean there might be other bits of energy that we haven't seen yet? Yeah, there might be. Yeah.
So let's think about someone walking in a straight line on the surface of the Earth. In principle, if they walk long enough, they will come back to their starting point. By walking in a straight line on the curved surface of the Earth, they really ended up walking in a circle.
Wow, duh. Woof. So this is how he's going to explain gravitational lensing. This is somehow integral to your knowledge of gravitational lensing. Is that if you're walking around in a circle, you'll come back to where you started. Fuck.
So that's the basic idea, but do we really need that idea? After all, Newton's idea of gravitational forces works pretty well. Is there an observation that can show that Einstein was wrong?
So again, this isn't inconsistent with Newton at all, and the only thing Einstein changed was that he made this, in a sense, change this inverse square law. I guess it's one way to look at it. He doubled the amount of effect the force happens to photons. So it's like photons, unlike the rest of us, and we get hit by a certain amount of photons hit us from a light bulb, somehow magically photons themselves get hit with twice as much. They're affected by gravity twice as much by Einstein's magical "I made that up" theory. I just say so because I have to make acceleration in a rocket do the same thing to photons as gravity. So I have to make those two things do the same thing, and the only way I can make them do the same thing is I have to make gravity bend light. And it has to bend it twice as much as anything else in the universe. I mean, it's such an illogical pile of mush.
Right? It turns out that there is. Light travels in a straight line. If it turns out that you see a curved path of light in outer space, that means space has been bent.
Right, and only gravity does it. So, like I said, can't make a magnet do it, right? Even though the light is supposed to be electromagnetic, it's supposed to be vibrations in the magnetic field and in the electric field. Even though it's supposed to be a vibration in those fields, and gravity is supposed to be, magnetism is supposed to be what the light is a vibration in. Somehow, by changing the magnetic field, I can't change the direction of the light. Does it make any sense? No. It can't make any sense. But light is bent by gravity. The bent geodesic somehow knows how to bend light. At twice the rate it bends electrons, or protons, or atoms, or people, or wrenches, or anything else. At twice the rate. Because Einstein made it up. Not because it's a fact. Not because there's a ton of evidence. Oh, fuck. But because of a stupid equivalency principle that means nothing. that tries to say that every way you get moved is the same. If I move you by shooting bullets at you, or I move you by blowing on you, or I move you by irradiating every single one of your atoms with radiation, that somehow they're all the same. Every kind of motion, every cause of acceleration is the same. It's not. Duh.
To get an idea of how this works, you need to understand a few things. For instance, a star emits light in all directions, but you can...
There we go. Now you're getting it. Yes, that's right. And a charge emits charge in all directions. And magnetism creates a field in all directions by exactly this diagram. They shouldn't go any further. This should be the universal physics diagram. This is what everything's doing. This is the inverse square law in 2D. There it is, right in front of you. That's how everything works.
only see it at a point. That's because light has to enter your eye to see it, and only a small amount of the star's light does that. Thus, the light you see follows a very narrow path.
And also, the fact is as the light's going through space, it is in fact encountering stuff, stuff that might damage it, break the little photons into microwaves, and then you might see it as microwave background radiation. Yeah, because the photon didn't stay a visible light photon while traveling.
According to Einstein's theory, the mass of a star will bend space, and light passing nearby will follow a curved path.
Right, and so here's the same mush drawn as if this was a gravitational lens, was the same as a magnifying lens, and that somehow the photon right here is going to be bent here, and that the photon right here is going to be bent a little bit, and this one will be even less, and that somehow you'll be able to get an image of the star. When, no, it's exactly the opposite. The gravity lens will bend this one more. So it'll bend it over here. And it'll bend this one preposterously more, and bend it way the fuck over here. So all you could see is one tiny shred of photons that would have the right angle here. The rest of them coming off this star would have little hope of being bent to your eye, or being bent the same way this row of photons was bent. At this little speck in space, the gravity is one kind of gravity and it can bend light. But at each other side of this line, the gravity is exactly the opposite. It's bending the light that needs more bending less, and it's bending the light that needs less bending more. Fact. Fact. There's no theory that fixes that. Fact. Broken. Illogical. Stupid.
We see this in this example. Now let's think about what it looks like when we just look into the sky. Since your eye doesn't know that the light was curved, a distant star looks like it's in the wrong place.
So again, he's saying you saw the whole star from that one little tiny bit of light that was bent. The one little ray that bent the right way is the whole star. Not true. So again, in theory, Einstein, this is an Einstein ring that's being created by this scenario. Einstein said you wouldn't see them because they'd be so tiny, they'd be so thin, the amount of photons would be so tiny that there's no way you could see them spread over a whole ring. Impossible. And yet they're making it possible. Why? How? By just making it up. Because they want it to be true, they'll just tell you it's true, that it somehow makes logical sense when it makes no sense at all. It's not a magnifying lens. Gravity does not create a magnifying lens. You can't collect a whole bunch of photons over a large area and project them to a location, because they just won't do it the right way. They won't put them on a focus at a distance. They'll send them exactly the wrong way.
Simple, right?
Stupid, right? Yeah, we simplified it so much that we just erased all of the mathematical errors by just pointing out how we don't bother with math now. We're just doing concept. So we don't bother. We'll shove math way up your ass when it's on our side, but when it's not on our side, we'll avoid it like the fucking plague.
The only problem is the only nearby star that can curve space is the sun. And the sun is so bright that it blots out any stars behind it.
Well, the real point is it really doesn't do that. The atmosphere does that, right? So without the atmosphere, the sun is no problem at all. You just look right next to it, no problem. It's black space, perfectly black, beautifully black. No light will bother you at all. You can evade all of the nasty little sunlight. You just put a little door on your telescope, a little block on this side, and you can look all you want over there. No problem at all. None. Zero. And of course, the sun isn't just the sun. The sun is this gigantic corona full of all this hot gas and fucking charged particles that goes out for bazillions of miles around the sun. So twice the diameter of the sun, you're already still in a field of intense charged particles. Obviously, looking through a field of intense charged particles would be about as stupid as looking through 100 humidity air and not expecting some distortion. Fuck.
So in 1919, Sir Arthur Eddington used an eclipse to see past the sun.
So let's understand the experiment. He got 20% of the results he was hoping for. At best, 20%, right? So he was looking for 10,000 stars per photograph. He got 1,000, right? I mean, dismal weather, dismal circumstances. The other guys, their telescope was fucked up, so both experiments were fucked in terms of the quality of the product they produced in the experiment. I mean, it's like having an earthquake while you're doing a balance measurement in your lab or something. I mean, it couldn't have been more catastrophic to there being a good experiment, and yet New York Times headlines. So a horribly performed experiment. It's not his fault, bad luck. But the fact is, it was a hard experiment to do, even with perfect photographs. Hard, very difficult. Very tiny change you're looking for. Very, very tiny. So even with perfect conditions, even the telescope getting a little too warm or something could fuck it all up. That's how sensitive this is. And yet they had completely imperfect circumstances. And he's putting this picture up like this was the greatest moment in science history. It's the greatest failure of science. If Newton was alive, you'd get a brain cancer watching this. You'd just say, "I can't believe you people even talk about me. You're so embarrassing as scientists. How could you fall for that?"
When he looked at the position of distant stars very close to the sun, he found that the positions of some of them weren't as expected.
So again, that's not what he was. He wasn't looking at a picture of a little pretty thing, blah, blah, blah. He's looking at a smudge. Okay, they're time-lapse photos. He's looking at a fucking smudge. Okay, and he's trying to figure out, well, where's the exact center of the smudge? Okay, and I'm going to compare it to this other smudge and see if the exact center is exactly the same place where it should be in the two smudges. Ugh.
Effective gravity had altered the path of light. This news clip from the November 10th, 1919 New York Times shows what he saw.
It doesn't show what he saw. So again, it's a fucking drawing. There's nothing real here. There's not a picture of his photographic plate showing this thing. And even if you could say this was an actual clip from his photograph, I mean, obviously everything is so tiny that you'd say, what do you mean? You based your results on this?
You should be aware that modern astronomers are torn on the persuasiveness.
Oh, good. So you mean modern humans? You mean humans with integrity are a little bit ashamed that they decided Einstein was right based on this thin piece of crap as evidence. That this really wasn't a very good starting point.
Of Eddington's measurement. But for more modern measurements, there is no dispute.
Okay, so for more modern measurements, there's no dispute. So where is he going to show us any of that undisputable evidence, like the satellite or Hubble photographs? No. Is he going to show us something, the Hubble photograph of something behind the sun getting lensed by our sun? Are we going to see a single photograph of this lensing thing happening, where this sun is in the wrong location? And even though they can do it anytime they want from space, anytime they want, they can do this experiment all day long, every fucking day. They could prove it. This is Fermilab, right? Who spends zillions of dollars. I mean, Fermilab doesn't have a single satellite up there with a camera on it. You're telling me? Oh, bullshit that they don't have connections. Bullshit that they couldn't do this experiment. Bullshit they don't have a vacuum that they could put the two-slit experiment in and see if it works the same way. Bullshit. Fuck.
In 1936, Einstein extended his idea to the situation where a distant mass and an even more distant mass were aligned along a line that passes through the Earth. Because light from the even more distant mass, which could be a galaxy or a quasar, is emitted in all directions, light emitted in many directions would all be bent by the intervening mass.
Okay, so again, he's saying light in many directions would be bent to a focus. As I am pointing out clearly, it can't happen that way. You can't. The light here, the light here, the light here. So he's saying light coming. Look at the way they even draw this, with it bending right from the origin. They don't even concede that it's a straight line till it gets somewhere in here. And that, again, let's concede, the gravity gets weaker as you go further out. So this lens is somehow working in a location where the gravity is minuscule. And then we're still supposed to believe we can see things 15 or 13 billion light years away, somehow looking through space, where that light has had to travel through millions and millions of different gravitational fields, and somehow we're seeing an accurate image? How can that possibly be true? But anyway, the point is that the light in here needs to be bent less. It's bent more. It goes way around over here and way around over here. And the light out here needs to be bent less. No, needs to be bent more. This light needs to be bent more, and it's bent less. This light needs to be bent less, and it's bent way too much. Fact. Again, in 1936, Einstein said, you can't see this. You're not going to see this. You're not going to see this Einstein ring.
The net result is that you would see an image of the more distant mass.
So here's what they're using as an image. It's an insane image, right? In the sense that every physicist should know that there's no way of having intense gravity without having intense sphericality. It's going to become insanely spherical. The more intense, they don't think black holes are square or have mountains on them or any of that horse shit. The more intense the gravity, the more symmetrical it gets. Okay, because it just wipes out any irregularity. So it gets smooth as fuck. And so it should never be disproportional. It should never be clumpy. It can't possibly create a lump. Like if there was a something swirling around or doing something, you couldn't possibly see the lumpiness, because to see it, it means the light has to be bent the right amount. Okay, it has to be bent less in the middle. And it has to be bent more on the outside. It's mathematically impossible to get this image with the lens that's not a magnifying lens. It's not the right shape.
Looked like a ring around the nearby mass, what scientists call the lensing mass.
So just look how sloppy all these pictures are. No symmetry. Zero symmetry. They're all way the fuck off. The centers, this one's out too far, this one's in too far. And then look at the thickness of the objects. These little blue lines are hundreds of light years across. It's a gigantic fucking thing. The gravity can't be consistently the right bending angle over that huge distance. Again, it's the wrong angle. The light that needs to be bent more is bent less. The light that needs to be bent less is bent more. They're mathematically impossible to be blamed on lensing. These are actual things in space. They're not figments. They're not distorted location images. They're just actual things from like a supernova or some other thing. They're remnants of some actual event. They are not. That can be inconsistent because of the masses in the way and the density of the space around it, how much stuff is around it. So explosions can do that. Explosions can make warpy rings.
Here are some examples that have been observed so far. You'll note the rings that are easily visible in each photo. Einstein.
So again, and you can notice how not symmetrical they are, how they're violating the rigid mathematics. The gravity has to be perfectly symmetrical. It has to obey the inverse square law. These images are chaotic and messy as hell. There's no explanation for that sloppiness at all. And in places we know where there is intense gravity, we don't get any lensing. We don't get any Einstein rings. We don't get anything. It's not a viable theory. It's garbage.
This basic idea has been confirmed and has been observed when the lensing mass was a single galaxy or even an entire cluster of galaxies.
Right, more horseshit. So incredibly undense matter that even has even less gravity. The gravity on the outside of a galaxy is a minute fraction of the gravity on Earth. I mean, it's an insanely little, tiny amount of gravity. The force is so small.
Once a principle has been demonstrated, it can be used.
All right, so you haven't demonstrated the principle, you haven't verified it with anything called a decisive evidence, you haven't done Darwin's job of pointing out all the examples of selection and human selection and wild selection. You haven't proven the geological record here. You haven't proven anything. You haven't shown any real evidence at all. Nothing that makes mathematical sense or anything that even makes logical sense. You haven't proven any reason to sit there and pretend photons are twice as bent by gravity. Just absolute nonsense.
For instance, if you see the example of gravitational lensing, you can use what you see to determine the mass of the lens. And this leads to an amazing use for the idea of gravitation.
Right. It gives them the liberty to make up a bunch of bullshit and say, this is 5.6 light years away. Well, guess what? They're probably going to be off a little bit because this theory has no validity. It's absolute nonsense.
Lensing. We can use it to see the unseeable. For Neil,
it won't happen. So he says it, and then he doesn't demonstrate it. What the great insight is that we have, except a bunch of bullshit stuff that you can't verify with anything called other sources of evidence. So it's like the LIGO thing. They just tell you. They never prove that this thing can measure anything. I mean, it obviously is a sensitive instrument, don't get me wrong. It can measure maybe earthquakes or something. But they have not demonstrated it to be anywhere near as sensitive as they claim it to be. They haven't done a single test to show us, look how sensitive it is. We swung a little tiny weight above the tunnel, and look how much it affected the photons. Nothing. You're all such goddamn fucking bad scientists.
For nearly a century, scientists have suspected that there exists a form of matter in the universe called dark matter.
So now they have another way to make magical lensing with the magical fake gravity that doesn't have a real source. It's just magical invisible gravity matter. And it doesn't do anything else. It just makes gravity. Isn't that cool? No, that sucks as science.
Dark matter, by its very definition, cannot be directly observed. However, dark matter has mass and therefore can form a gravitational lens.
Yeah, especially if you put it exactly where you want it. So we can just put it in a nice little circle around here, and we put, oh, it's a little bendy over there. Well, let's just put a little dark matter. We'll fix the bend in the image, but we'll put a little dark matter there. There, now the image is fixed. I mean, it's just such invisible man. Let's just make up the evidence. Let's just, it's. If these were lawyers, they would, be the most despicable creatures on earth. They're just making up evidence with their dark matter.
Accordingly, we can use distorted images of galaxies to directly measure the mass between those distant galaxies and us. And this is important, this even includes the amount of invisible dark matter.
Oh, yes, but then we can measure the amount of dark energy by saying how much does the dark matter feel compressed. Just, the compression rate of the dark matter. I mean, it's just so fucking stupid.
There have been many studies whereby astronomers have used this technique, but a recent and very powerful result has been obtained using a 570 megapixel camera that is the heart of an experiment called the Dark Energy Survey, or DES. It uses a 4-meter wide telescope in Chile to study the night sky. Although the name of the
Yeah, no, although then it has a nice fancy name and we spend a lot of money on it and we're getting a side contract out of the deal and blah, 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 blah. And that's why we'll hype this crap as if it means something to anybody, but it really doesn't.
experiment suggests that it is to study dark energy. And furthermore, dark energy and matter are very different things. It turns out that DES studies millions of distant galaxies. With such a large data set, they can look for even small distortions in the shape of those galaxies to work out the amount of intervening matter.
Right, so they can, again, fix their broken math with the invisible dark matter, whatever, eraser. We can erase all our problems with a magical eraser.
Now, you might claim that the distant galaxies could be distorted on their own. They just might be weird shaped galaxies. However, what astronomers look for are distortions in common. If all the galaxies in a distant cluster of galaxies have a similar distortion, then it is far more likely that the distortion stems from the lensing effects of the intervening matter and not the shape of the galaxies themselves.
Right, and it doesn't have anything to do with their origin, actually, right? I mean, the fact is you affect a galaxy, with some effect, something that does change how the two binary stars are spinning around each other, let's say. You can understand that if I do that to any kind of system, I have a spinning anything, and I poke the spinning anything, that its procession is going to last a hell of a long time, right? So something could have exploded 10 million years ago, whatever, 10 billion years ago, and it would have an effect on all the galaxies in the area, change their orientation, their paths, their binary stars would change in their orbits. And you'd see the effects for billions of years. Simple, logical answer, right? But instead, no, dark matter. Just too fucking stupid. I mean, it's just such bad science. Again, it doesn't even... Look, the fact that we disagree on what should be a rational explanation in light of just superficial evidence. But there's just no concession that the evidence pool is so fucking thin. I mean, there's just not much water in the evidence pool. And they won't concede any of that. They just arrogantly spout this crap as if it's the fucking only possible reasonable explanation, when it's not even close to the only possible reasonable explanation. It's the one they've chosen. This is their silly fucking Christian religion.
I can illustrate this using this iPad app called GravLens. We start out with a uniform grid of distant galaxies. However, if we superimpose a large but invisible mass, we can see that the distortions caused by the gravitational lensing.
Ugh, just amazing bullshit. So again, these distortions could also just have been caused billions of years ago by an event. And the event is still there. It affected their destiny forever. Just like if I fucking punch you in the face really hard, I can leave a scar. Fuck.
We can then make visible the lensing mass. Scientists use these small distortions to make maps of the dark matter in the universe.
Well, this is just totally uninteresting, so... We do all kinds of bullshit to make up all kinds of bullshit. There's no real evidence here of anything. Well, we'll play it just so you don't accuse me of cheating him.
The DES experiment isn't the only group employing the gravitational lensing technique, but they do have an incredible piece of equipment that can study about 10% of the sky. Their recent announcement covers only a mere 0.3% of the sky.
Oh yeah, that just looks so much like proof. These fuzzy images are just such proofy looking.
Only using a single year's worth of data. When you expand their analysis to the entire angle they cover and the full 5 years of data they expect to take, you can expect to see a very precise map of the matter of the universe, including the invisible dark matter.
Bullshit. So what else can you say? It's all bullshit. They're a picture of a black hole, not a picture. It's all bullshit physics.
Basically, Einstein's theory of general relativity has allowed us to determine the structure of the universe, both visible and invisible.
Now, it's allowed you to draw imaginary pictures, and that's it. You've drawn them based on your imagination, and you have just nothing. Is that real evidence? I mean, the evidence is just nothing. It's just your fairy story.
And that is an incredible achievement.
You're despicable people. Just despicable scientists doing despicable things. It's despicable. Despicable. Alright, now I'll surrender for the day. So any of you, if you could prove you're not stupid, I'd appreciate it. Can somebody write an intelligent comment? Some sort of debunk of a single thing I've said? Some kind of something relevant and rational? Something meaningful to this process of me saying, you are completely wrong, I'm completely right. Yeah. No, you can't. You won't, anyway. I should just use the keyboard. Lament. So depressing. This is so depressing. Ugh, you know, Bill Gates is not even close to the right subject now. He's talking about his end of the human extinction bullshit, and there's no continuity to the theory at all. It's we're going to go extinct because the economy is going to crash. Well, yes, I agree the economy will crash. There will be another Great Depression thing, but we already sort of know how to fix that. We already know that, well, the government just has to force businesses, force the farmers to keep farming, pay them something. You know, you just keep the essential things functioning and everything will work out all right. So, yeah, not a big deal. Money will be crap. We have to print new money. So what? Humans won't go extinct. Lots of them might get killed, you know, but they won't go extinct because of that. And the dumber they get, the more babies they have. So, no fears. If it's going to die, we have to kill it. We have to grow up and do the right thing. It's just so fucking depressing. What's this? I didn't tell you to do the videos comments. I hate this fucking YouTube crap features. Hate it. Like, I can't even find this shit. It's just this fucking seeking thing over and over again. Ugh, I hate YouTube. I hate everything. The only thing I like is me. Anyway, till next. Oh, that's right. I'm going to use the keyboard. Yeah. I'm going to be sophisticated. Use the sophisticated approach. So, until the next time. Yeah.